Hello everyone, it's Derek here. This is gonna be our July review video. Gonna talk about how we did in July, and then gonna go over some of the crucial hands, not crucial, but like big pots. I have tagged, and then going through our thought process and something like that. So this is our graph for July. Obviously, we don't run so hot, as you can see. Our EV is like way above our our actual winning. It's very unfortunate. I think we ran like 20 buy-in behind our EV, all-in EV. So here's the result. We were down a little bit, like 1400, like almost like 1500, while our expected value was 23.6. So it's very unfortunate. I think it's like let me see how bad it is. I'm actually going over this live, so I didn't even check by myself. So we are running $3,850 behind our expected value, which is equivalent to almost 20 buy-ins. On the rake back, we did get like close to like 2,000, like 2,100 or something. So we're still like up $500 for the month after the rake back. It's definitely not something we want to be. Like I was never a rake back player in my entire career, but something like doing for a month like this. While we ran like almost 20 buy-in behind EV, it is still good to be able to be in the positives after the rake backs. Let's just go over a few hands that I've tagged and then see how it is. I only tag a few hands here and then I tag some hands on natural A. That's kind of interesting. I did play a few hours in natural A's during July. I played more out there starting August, but that's just something that we're gonna be talking about in the August review video. So let's just focus on this one for now. Okay, let's just go over the hand. I think just do this and then replay hands. Okay, so the very first hand, we were dealt pocket nines. Let me just make this bigger so it's easier for you guys to see. First hand, we got dealt pocket nines in the cutoff, and there's a race under the gun. The sit out is a pretty solid regulars, and there's a cold call from a recreational player. And here our goal is, of course, if we want to play, we need to put in a 3-bet because you never want to put, because if we just call here, it's very likely that we can get squeezed by the button, we can get squeezed by the blind, or if we don't get squeezed, small blind and big blind can come along. And then basically we're playing pocket nines against 4 or 5 players. I mean, 3 to 4 players at least, and then even we have position, pocket nine is not the hand that you want to be playing against more than 2 player. Actually, I prefer just heads up. Like even against 2-player, pocket nine is kind of vulnerable. So we put in a squeeze 3-bet to 2060. The sizing is about 4x, 4.5x, almost 5x because we do want to isolate them. We don't want them to both call, and then we want to give a pretty bad price for whoever that's still yet to act, to fold their hands. So for example, we do this, and then let's say a button has like ace queen. It's gonna put in an extremely difficult situation. Possibly just fold out his ace queen, ace jack suited, sometimes that kind of hands. Then it's gonna be a big win for us, right? All the button fold, blind folds, and then under the gun, cold, which is good because if he has any type of strong holdings like ace king, ace queen suited, king, obviously jacks plus, not jacks plus, maybe queens plus, he would definitely go for a 4-bet. So he flat call, and then surprisingly, under the gun +1 recreational player also called. So when he called, I put him on some kind of like mid pocket pairs, maybe like low suited connector, something like that, but never something too strong. And fortunately, we flop top sets. However, there's obviously straight draw and flush draw out there. They both check it to me. On this board, you probably want to bet like a little more than a smaller sizing that we have been using. Like I'm not sure what I did. We actually went for the small sizing. Um, I guess that's fine because this is 3-bet pot. Pot is already big enough, so 30% its pot is normally like, if it's heads up, this is like a 50% sizing. So I guess it's okay. Under the gun cold called. He can have like some overcards and flush draw, gotcha and flush draw here. Um, he can obviously have some overpair. And then surprisingly, the recreational player called as well. If he had some kind of we were putting on suited connectors and small pocket pair pre-flop. So if he flop a set here, he's obviously gonna raise. So when he flat call, I don't think he has much. Maybe like a flush draw or something. And then the turn is very good for us. He paired the board, so now we're only losing to pocket fours. Obviously, we had the nuts on the flop, but now we are not afraid of draws anymore. He checks, and then so the recreational player actually let out for 112 dollars. For us, there's no reason to raise here because we're not afraid of any flush draw anymore. They're drawing dead, and his range he can have some pocket fours, but most likely holding that's doing this is probably like pocket eights. That's the only thing I can think about it. And we had that crush, obviously. And then we don't know what this guy has, and he can obviously have a flush draw. And then if we just flat call here, it giving at least some kind of chance to call. I don't think he would call with just a flush draw. So there's no reason to raise here. We just go for the call. And under the gun fold, river is a three of spades. And he checked. It's really weird that he checked here because if he had pocket eights, he's definitely gonna go for it. If he let out with the flush draw, he get there on the river, he should probably just jam. Um, of course, for us, once we check too, like we have 147 into a pot that's 350. Obviously, jamming is like the only option, so we go for the jam. And surprisingly, he call with a king high flush. So the way he plays like kind of weird because if he let out $100 something on the turn, he should probably just jam the river, right? But obviously against a play like that, you don't know how they play. But it's kind of interesting. But you don't want to be playing a flush draw this way. It's just completely wrong. If I were in his position, I'd probably just check fold the turn because the board paired on the turn, so he could be easily drawing that against a boat. So he should probably just check fold the turn. Next one. Okay, next one we were dealt ace 10 offsuit at mid position. We opened to 450, got flat called by two players. We flat middle pair. This is probably a board that if we see bet, we're gonna bet a little bigger. But I don't see too much full equity on this board. We went for the check, and then this guy bet 30%, really small bet, and then gets flat against two players. Against this sizing, obviously we are continuing because we do have the ace of spade to for the backdoor flush draw, backdoor not flush. So we went for the call, and then the turn is very interesting. Is the ace of clubs. So we now have aces up. However, king jack does get there. Obviously they can have king jack of spade, something like that, or just offsuit king jack. So we're not gonna be too thrilled about this card, but at the same time, we have the best hand most of the time. Like king jack's the only hand that we're losing to, and I just don't want to check again on this double suited board. If they can have any type of two clubs, two spades type of hands, I want to charge them. So we actually went for the pot lead, which I don't mind. This is probably the best play. I don't like checking because I feel like we're getting checking back a lot by worse, and then when they're bad, it's almost like always crushed us. So I'd rather just bet out and then fold to a raise versus just check calling. Unfortunately, they both called. This is kind of like really shocking to me. And then I thought like when we get called by two spot, I just feel like we don't have the best hand. But at the same time, if they have king jack, they probably want to put in some kind of raise on a double suited board. So I wasn't sure like where we are at this point, but we don't have to worry about it because we rivered the boat. We're only losing to ace queen now, and it's very unlikely they have ace queen because if they do, they probably gonna three bet us pre-flop since they both just flat call pre-flop. This guy for sure he doesn't have ace queen because I raise small and then there's a flat caller. If he has ace queen, it's definitely squeezing three bet here with ace queen if he has ace queen. So I'm not too worried about ace queen on this board. So we value bet 80, and the button decided to raise us to 245. Um, I was making it, so we were playing like super deep, right? We have like 300 big blind to start the hand with. I was thinking if he had ace queen, he's for sure is gonna squeeze three bet pre-flop. Just because he didn't do that, so we pretty much we have the nuts because we only lose to ace queen, and then I just don't see how he just calling after a raise and a call with ace queen on the button. It's almost 100% the time he's gonna three bet ace queen. So I'm thinking that he probably had like pocket tens or pocket eights, but even that he should be like raising at some point during the hand, right? He could have like ace eight that's doing this, but I don't think ace eight is ever folding, so we just go for the jam because he doesn't have any ace queen in his range, in my opinion. So we went for it, and then unfortunately he folds. So I'm guessing that he could be even bluffing here. It's kind of crazy, but it's definitely a possibility because I don't see him playing a set this way. The only set combination he has is pocket 10 and pocket 8s. He probably 3-bet pocket 10s pre-flop. So only pocket 8s and ace 8 are his full house combination. I don't think he had either because if he had pocket 8, he should be like raising on the flop. If not raising on the turn 100% because I do have a lot of ace queen in our range. So I actually think he might be just bluffing here, or he has like king jack for a straight. But king jack should just be a call. So once he raised, he has to at least have a bolt, or he just like bluffing and then gets caught. Regen and then he fold. Good pot for us, but could have been a little better. Next hand, we have pocket nines in the small blind, raise under the gun, or two callers, and obviously in small blind with pocket nines, we have to do a huge squeeze because we don't want to play pocket nines out of position against 3 players. Most likely 4 players, because if we call big blind, most likely will come alone. And then we got called by all 3 players, so this is kind of like a weird situation because most of the time, um, once we do like a huge squeeze, it should be like heads up or 2-player maximum. But we flop middle set. However, it is a pretty draw heavy board with the jack 10 9. Any king queen, any queen 8, any 10 a7 is a straight. But we flop a set in a huge 3-bet pot against 3 players, so I don't think we're folding here that much. If they have a straight, then we just have to kind of pair the board and stock out. Just never folding on this board. We go for a pretty decent sizing half pot bet. Got called by the under the gun raiser, and then the other 2 folded. At this point, I'm thinking he could possibly have king queen, and then he could possibly have king queen. He could have like some ace jack. That's about it. King queen ace jack, maybe ace queen with the open-ended straight draw and 2 overcards. So this turn pair, the board obviously is pretty good for us because if he had like jacks or 10 or even jack 10, I think he's probably raising the flop. So we just continue and just shoved because he has $175 left. Pot is already 212, and he decided to call. And river is a spade, and then he shows ace jack off. So it's kind of weird that he played this way because in our range we have tons of aces, kings, and queens. So I don't know why he called the flop and then called the turn. Sort of. If I were him, I would probably just fold pre-flop because ace jack offsuit against a small blind huge 3-bet is just like getting crushed most of the time, right? So if I'm in his position, I'm folding pre-flop. But he decided to go for it, and then once you flop top pair top kicker, it's very hard to fold, especially we can be squeezing here with pretty light. So he went for the call, and then it worked out. It worked out for us this time. Next hand we have pocket kings. We raise under the gun, and then we get 3-bet by the cutoff. Obviously we put in a 4-bet. He flat call, and then the flop comes a Rambo A54. This doesn't hit any of our range that hard. If we were winning pre-flop, we're most likely still winning after this flop. We decided to go for the check. My thought process was that if he had jacks or queens, he's probably gonna bet, and we're just gonna check raise and get it in. And he does bet pot, and then at this point, we're never folding here, so it's rather that we want to call or we want to just check raise, right? But the goal is to get pocket queens and pocket jacks to call. So we don't want to just call and then let's say the turns like an ace or king, and it's gonna scare them off, right? So we decide to go for the check raise, and then he called. Now turns a six of diamonds. It doesn't change anything, even though it's a four card to the straight. But he just doesn't have any seven in his range, and then we don't have that many sevens in our range at all, since it's under the gun raise versus a cutoff three bet, and he does call our four bet. So we just decide to go for the jam. If he had jacks and queens here, most likely he might call since the pot is already too big, and then we only betting like a little over half the pot on the turn. So I'm pretty sure that jacks and queens, once they get to this point, jacks and queen is probably calling and never folding. So we went for the jam, and then he called. And unfortunately, he had aces here, but it's like I wouldn't play this hand any differently because he actually slow play his aces, which we give him credit for, but we're never folding kings pre-flop anyway. So this is just unfortunate that we ran into aces. Our kings ran into tons of aces in July, so this is just one of them. That's the pot's a little bigger. One next hand is a king queen offsuit in big blind, mid position open, and button called. Here we can go for a three bet or we can go for a flat call. Either way worked. So we actually went for the call, and then the flop is open in the straight draw. I think this guy's like a super bad fish, so that's why we decided to just call. And then this is a pretty good regular. Obviously three betting is okay as well. And then flop we have overs and open in the straight draw, and we check it to him. He bet half size, the good regular fold, and we just called. And then turns the ace, so we have the nuts, and we decided to go for a check. And this guy bet out again, like a little over half the pot. My thought process was he could have a lot of ace jack here. He could obviously have a set, and then he's not the type of player that can lay down those kind of hands. So because I have some notes and he's kind of like a really bad fish, so we actually did something that we don't normally do against regular or even like regular like just recreational player, because I thought he's like extremely bad. And then this when you bet this turn, I just feel like he has tons of ace jack, ace 10. Or even a set, something like that. So we actually went for the overgen. So we overgen like freaking 200 BB in, because he's deep as well. So I just feel like if he had ace jack and a set or something, he's gonna overplay. And then he instant call us. He snap call, right? So when we did this, he snap call. I'm like, oh nice. And river paired the board, unfortunately, and he does have pocket jacks. So we lost a huge $900 pot here. However, I was pretty happy with the way we play, because like I said, I just don't think he's the type of player that's gonna fold ace jack on this board or even ace 10. Not to mention set, like I said, is never folding here. So our overjam actually makes sense because we did have the nuts, and then I'm not even sure if he's folding ace king of clubs. He might even call that. So I was pretty confident with our play. And then it did work out because we did get maximum value, but unfortunately he sucked out, and then we ended up losing like a $900 pot. That's just unfortunate. I think that's it for ACR, and then let's go to Natural 8. So we only play like 2,500 hands on Natural 8 in July. We're up a little bit, like 3 buy-ins or so. There is a few hands I marked. Okay, so only 5 hands, and then we'll be wrapping up the session. I mean the reviewing session, obviously. Let's just go for this. Replay hands and make it bigger. Okay, so this is a few hands we play on natural. It's more interesting hands because the player are obviously weaker. So you'll see like some kind of weird stuff going on. And I'm just gonna go over our thought process. The first hand we have pocket sixes at mid position. Sometimes we raise, sometimes we fold, and this time we decided to go for the raise. Gets 3 bet by the button. Obviously, on natural A, we don't see the stats until now. Like while we were playing, there's actually no stats, so we don't know how they play. But facing button 3-bet, pocket sixes, once we open, it's almost always a call. And we did go for a call. Flop is 7-5-4 ramp, two diamonds, and we do have an open-ended straight draw. On this board, it's always a check calling situation, so we check it to him, and he does see bet like pretty big, like 2/3 the pot. However, we're never folding here because he can obviously have ace king, ace queen, ace jack suited, those kind of hand, king queen suited, and pocket six we're still ahead of those ranges. And if he had aces and kings or queens, we still have a pretty decent chance to win the pot with the open-ended straight draw, and then we can also hit our set because in his range he just doesn't have that many eights and he doesn't have that many threes. So if we hit our set, most likely we're good. And we decide to check call, and then the turn we get there, I think checking like you can go either way. If you check, but on this card, most likely he's checking behind. He's almost checking behind with his entire range. Rather it's ace king, ace queen suited with a diamond, or he has pocket aces, pocket kings. I just feel like on this turn he's almost always checking back. So I don't want that, right? So if he has like overcard like ace king, ace queen, ace jack of diamonds, I want him to I want to charge his flush draw. So on a card that most likely he's gonna check back, I don't want that. I don't want to give him a free card. 'Cause almost for sure, if we check here, he's just gonna check back with his entire range. So we go for a bet of half pot and expecting to actually fold a lot. If he called this bet, most likely he has aces or kings or flush draws. I don't even think flush draw should call this bet, but against an unknown player, you just don't know. He actually go for a raise, which is extremely interesting. He actually jam because he just doesn't have that many sixes, especially like we block sixes super hard. So we block two sixes, so it's very unlikely he has a six here. So when he jammed, I'm thinking like overcard and flush draw. So it's an easy call. It's pretty much a snap call. Like we always had the best hand here. We go for the call, and then he has pocket tens, and then we're able to hold. Pocket tens doesn't even have a gut shot, so I don't know why he did this. He should just call and then maybe fold to the river or something. Um, but yeah, because he still beats flush draw on the turn, so he can obviously just call and then reevaluate on the river. But obviously he didn't want to do that. He probably thought we had like overcross and flush draw or something like that. But we will never lead the turn if that's the case. So kind of a bad play from him, but it worked out for us. Next one we have pocket seven in the cutoff. Race, facing a race mid position. Obviously, we're playing with three betting. Just never like calling here. And then he called, and we flop a set, which is pretty nice. We're only losing to pocket jacks, and then it's very unlikely he has pocket jacks, because I would assume that he'll probably four bet. He check it to us. We do a standard small c bet because on this board he doesn't really connect that well. He can either have like king jack, ace jack, king jack suited, ace jack, or like pocket 9, pocket 10 type of hands. I just don't see that he has too many. He connects with this board that hard. So we went for the small sizing, and he check call, and then the turn is a king, which is pretty good for our range. Not necessarily good for his. Obviously he has some king jack, but that's about it. He check again, but the king of spade does bring out a backdoor flush draw and backdoor straight draw. So this is a card that we want to bump pretty hard. So we went for a pretty big sizing, like almost like 75%, 80% the pot. He calls again. And on the river, it's a four of spades. So this is kind of like a tricky spot because four of spade completes 6-8. I'm just not sure if 6-8 will call the turn. So if we bet the turn small, 6-8 is definitely going to be in his range. But since we bet the turn pretty hard, the only 6-8 he can have is 6-8 of spade, and then he actually get there with a flush. Other than that, I do see a bunch of random hands like ace jack and with the ace of spades. Maybe ace 7 with the ace of spades, but we block that super hard. Or maybe some kind of pocket pair. he decided to go for the jam here on the river. Um, I actually took a while to think about this hand, like how we should do. Like I think I almost used out my entire time bank, but I just couldn't put him on a hand, right? So the only hand that makes sense is 6A of spade. Don't think offsuit 6A calls the turn. I feel like he has tons of king jack here, and then just thinking that we might call off with ace king. So I still ended up calling. Because I just don't see enough value combination that he can have. I just see more bluffs and then overplaying two pairs sometimes. And on a pot like this, we just have to be. So he bet 172 into 170, and then we only have like 160 something. So we actually just have to be right here about like 1/3 the time. So if we're right here, like 33-35% of the time, it should be a call. Obviously, facing this jam, sometimes we're losing, but I think we're winning way more often than 30%, 33% of the time. So it's actually not that difficult of a decision. If we're a lot deeper, if we're like 300 back and then he shoved 300 on the river, it's probably a fold. But since he only shoved like pot size, like we only have pot size bet left, so we just have to be here, like be right here, like 35-33% of the time. So we went for the call, and then he ended up showing us ace queen off. He does have the ace of spade as blocker, so I actually don't mind his play. But if I were him, I'd probably just check fold the flop. This is a little bit too sticky because he does have an offsuit ace queen on this flop. Like his hand's pretty worthless. Obviously, he pick up Gasha on the turn, and then he decided to just flow with us, and then just make a play on the river when four space hit, and then using a blocker to bluff. But it's a little bit ambitious. I just don't see this play as profitable. Um, I mean, if he has like ace queen of spades on this flop, you can make case for check calling and then play the same way, and then he's gonna stack us, right? But other than that, with the offsuit ace queen, I just don't see that much equity in it, and I don't see too much reason to be sticky on this board out of position against the original three better. So I wouldn't. I don't like his play that much. If he has like ace queen of spade, obviously it's gonna be a great play. I mean, it's gonna be a better play, and then yeah, and then he pick up extra equity on the turn. But with the offsuit ace queen, I just don't see a reason why do this against ourselves, like a pretty solid player, and we have position, and then we're the we have the initiative. So this is not gonna be like a profitable play in the long run. Next hand we have ace nine off in a small blind. Button open. We're never calling here. If we want to play this hand, obviously putting a three bet, which we did. And then he flat on the button, and then we flop pretty much nothing, but our entire range is still stronger. We have all the jacks plus. We can have like ace king, ace queen of spades, something like that. So obviously on this board, even though we missed, but our range still, this is a pretty good board for pocket aces and pocket kings, so it's really good for our range. So we start with a small c bet, and then he calls. On the turn, we turn a 9, and we decide to barrel because we do pick up a pair. And on this board, we beat tons of flush draws, and we don't know what he has. If he has a 10, I just feel like we can just barrel the turn, and then we can barrel him off on the river if it's a non-spade. So just decide to go for the second barrel. So once we barrel this turn, we're almost always going all in on the river, unless it's like a scary card like a 10 or a spade on the river, then we just give up, right? So we barrel the turn pretty big, and then he calls. And the river brings out a 7 of diamonds, which is a pretty good card for us because I don't think he's going to play like Jack 8 this way. And first of all, I don't think he calls pre-flop with Jack 8. If he had Jack 8 suited, I don't see him calling on the flop with Jack 8. Unless Jack 8 of spades specifically. But I just don't see it. Jack 8 of spades is like the only thing that can call this flop and call this turn. So we just stick to our plan and just jamming because I don't feel like he can call. Like he's pretty capped at like king 10, ace 10 type of hands. It would be very difficult for him to call a jam. And obviously we have all the bluffs too. We can have like ace king suited, ace king of spades. We can have tons of queen jack of spades, king queen of spades, king jack of spades. So we have tons of bluffs as well. So sometimes we can get value. We just go for a jam, and then I just don't see him calling with like ace 10 or something. But he does call, and then surprisingly, we do have a winning hand, and then he does have king nine suited. So his thought process he probably put us on like ace king of spades, king queen of spades, king jack of spades. This type of hands that we pick up extra equity with a gut shot or open ended on turn and decide to barrel, and then when we miss, we just go nuts with the river jam as a bluff, which we do sometimes. So this is the benefit of having this kind of image, because if people know that you're capable of making this type of moves, sometimes when you don't have the best of you don't have like the best of the hands, they will still pay you off like this. So this is a very interesting hand. Um, I was pretty comfortable jamming the river. I just didn't expect him to call. I expect him to fold the river, which he should with the king knight, but he didn't. And then we made tons of money, which is pair nice, which is nice. Next hand, ace jack suited, raise under the gun. I think this hand is actually a mistake we made. So if ace jack suited, if we want to play, obviously we're putting 3-bet. Folding has absolutely no problem here. We get 4-bet from the small blind, and normally this is really he has really strong ranges because of those positions. Like he opened under the gun with 3-bet cut off, and then he putting a 4-bet in small blind. This is normally like ace king, aces, kings, queens plus. Um, but it's natural A, right? You don't know how people play, and then we decided to go for the call here with the ace jack suited in position, which is the huge mistake. And now I look back, I will probably like do this maybe like less than 10% of the time, or even less. Like facing a 4-bet in those positions under the gun raise, and then we 3-bet cut off, and then he 4-bet in the small blind. In this situation, I think we're folding around like 95% of the time, unless the player is extremely crazy, then we can peel the flop. But most of the time, just a fold. So this is actually, I wouldn't say mistake, but we don't call this too often. We decided to call. I think he might be like a weaker player or something. I don't remember. Obviously, pretty good flop. Ace King Nine with the two hearts, so we have top pair. Pretty decent kicker. And we do have the not flush draw. However, I don't think our kicker is that good against his ranges, because he does have tons of ace king, ace queen. He does have some aces and kings. So we're not gonna go crazy with this flop, even though it seems like it's a pretty good flop for us, but it might be an even better flop for him. So gonna be careful. He bet $30 into an almost $90 pot, and then obviously we are calling, never raising here, because raising makes absolutely no sense. If he has pocket queens, he's folding. If he has like ace king, aces and kings, obviously we're almost drawing, not drawing dead, but drawing to a flush draw only. So just gonna play in position. So we go for a flat. Turns the 5 of spades. He barreled 110, so we have a decision to make. Now I look back, I probably should have just fold here. Because he's never doing this with pocket queens, so he's doing this with pocket aces, pocket kings, or like ace king, and then we don't like the odds is not right for us to hit our flush here against this sizing. So now I look back, we probably should have fold the turn, but we didn't. So it's kind of like a misplay. First of all, we should have folded pre-flop. Very low frequency. You can call every once in a while, playing 4-bet pot in position with ace jack suited, but it should happen like less than 5% of the time, I think. And here, second mistake is on the turn when he barrel like this, we should just fold, because he almost always has ace king, aces and kings here. He would never do this with queens, and I don't think he would do this with ace queen, because we could have ace king in our range. So now I look back, this is probably a fold. This is like pretty easy fold, I think, but obviously we went for it. I think it's because he is a weaker player, so at the same time, like when you play against a weaker player, you just have to take more chances because you don't know what they're doing and you don't know what they're doing, and they don't even know what they're doing. So sometimes you just have to take your chance. I mean, worst case, we still have hearts to hit, right? So I guess we went for it, but we probably shouldn't. Sometimes playing against a weaker player, it just messed up your mind sometimes, and then you start making like mistakes where that you normally don't make against a better regulars. And then we bricked out, and then he does show ace king, so we lost this pot. Next one, king jack suited. I think this is the last one. If I'm not, yeah, this is the last one. So king jack of spades folded to us. We open at cutoff. Gets 3-bet. And then obviously we're defending with king jack suited cutoff versus button 3-bet. Even we're out of position, but in those positions we almost always have to defend with, especially with king jack suited. Offsuit we can consider folding, but suited is definitely worth to see a flop. And we do flop a pretty good flop. Over cards and flush draw. We check it to him, planning to do a check raise. He does go for a small c-bet. Against a larger sizing, we can consider just calling. But against a small c-bet, I just feel like check raising is the best play because we do get some full equity if he has like ace king, ace queen, ace jack suited, those kind of hands, and it's just tons of full equity against those hands. And then if we can get like ace king, ace jack to fold, it's a huge win because we get dominated obviously. So we go for a check raise and hoping that he'll fold. Unfortunately, he doesn't fold, and then the turn is a 7. Um, Now I look back, we should probably check this turn, almost like always. Obviously we can be check raising with the 7 and then barrel here. I guess that was my thought process when I was playing the hand. I could obviously have like 7-8 suited here, 7-9 suited, 7-6 suited, ace-7 suited here. So I guess barreling the turn isn't too bad. But now I look back, it's probably better to check. But obviously we went to a bet on turn. So the reason why we're using a smaller sizing is because I want to have enough stack so our SPR is a little better on the river when we jam. It puts more pressure on him on the river. So if we bet like $50 here, so if we bet $50 here and then he calls, pot would be like 195, like not like 192, 193, and then we'll only have like 110 behind. So when we have 110 behind and then pot is 192, it's just way more likely that we get called if we missed. So I want to bet a size where we still have a decent stack on the river to jam to put more extra pressure on him. By using 30, if he calls, pot will be like 150, and then we still have like 135 left. It's almost like 1-to-1 SPR, which is stack to pot ratio. So 135 into 135 bet into a 150 pot is way more effective in terms of having your opponent fold versus having 110 in a 190 pot. So that's my thought process. But regardless, I think we're jamming here on the river. Don't the only my thought process was that it's gonna be extremely difficult for him to call unless he had a bowl here or a 7 specifically. He does call the turn, and then on the river we break out, and then we just decide to jam. Since we're wrapping 7s, that's pretty much the only hand we're wrapping. We're wrapping 7s. We're wrapping pocket deuces. That's it. I'm pretty much just wrapping 7x. We went for the jam, so 133 into 153 is pretty strong. I mean, if he has like pocket 10s and pocket 9s, it would be pretty difficult for him to call. And then obviously if he had the like ace high flush draw or something, he's folding. So I like this play a lot. But he decided to call, and he has pocket jacks, and then we lose the pot. But not being result orientated, now I look back at this hand, we should probably probably checking the turn and then bet the river to bluff. That way, if we have ace king, we still can get off like ace king, ace queen off on the river with a bet. But I don't mind the way we play because it's always okay to lose money with aggression because you always have full equity that you don't realize. I think that's it. So overall, like in July, we're up like $800 on natural 8. So it's like what, like We made 500 rig back, like $1,300 in July. I mean, it's not the greatest month we have, but obviously a month where we ran 20 buy-ins behind all in EV, it's good to be still in the green, right? Better than losing. And that's about it for the July review video. And I'll obviously make another one for August. And see you guys on the stream Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. Peace, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video.